Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. Okay, you see, this is the sort of week that could have been far worse if I didn't implement album bomb rules. As I had mentioned before, I had vetoed XXXTENTACION's posthumous album Skins from my schedule because I refused to dignify what his money-grubbing label did throughout its release. But it also came with the acknowledgement that at least some of this would wind up on the Hot 100. But given that we've got 8 new entries, might as well give the album bomb rules from last week another spin and only talk about the best and worst entries and anything that winds up in the top 40, which winds up making this list a lot more manageable, which is the holiday boost that I could definitely use right about now. But before we get into that, our top 10. And unsurprisingly, Ariana Grande's Thank You Next had a solid hold on the number 1. Although there are some pressure points that are telling. Yeah, the radio, the streaming numbers, they're huge, especially on YouTube. But those sales look a little bit soft, especially when you compare them to our top seller, Without Me by Halsey, up at number 2. And while it is marginally ahead of Thank You Next on the radio, it's streaming, especially on demand and YouTube, that holds it back from getting a lot higher. Now this elbows back Sicko Mo by Travis Scott at number 3, because even despite maintaining good streaming numbers, it does not have radio momentum anymore. Then we got Happier by Marshmello and Bastille at number 4, which, yes, had some good sales, but it peaked on the radio, and streaming's never been that strong for it. It could be taking some losses pretty soon when it faces competition. Now what doesn't seem to be losing at all is High Hopes by Panic at the Disco at number 5, where amazingly the radio gains haven't stopped and it actually picked up a slot on sales. With streaming as a non-presence is not getting any higher, but still I'm a little bit amazed that it's held on here. Then we have what I reckon will be a bigger challenger in the next couple weeks, All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey, up at number 6, with strong sales and streaming. And while I think I might have overestimated this being a number 1 contender, it's got the sort of traction to get higher. You never know in the next 2 weeks. Then, following off the boost for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse being a genuinely great movie that I saw last weekend, we've got Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee hitting a new peak at number 7. It quietly built up a solid radio base, so with a boost to sales and streaming, this could hold a solid spot in the weeks ahead. Then we had a position gain for Drip Too Hard by Lil Baby and Gunna at number 8. It's always had good streaming and it had a good week on sales and the radio, alarmingly. Followed on by ZZ by Kodak Black featuring Travis Scott and Offset losing a spot at number 9, likely thanks to streaming losses. And finally, in case you weren't all sick of this song enough, we got a track re-entering the top 10 because for some ungodly reason it's still getting YouTube and the radio hasn't died yet. And that's right, it's Girls Like You by Maroon 5 featuring Cardi B back at number 10, and the sooner that it's back out of the top 10, the better. And on that note, our losers and dropouts. Now, in the latter category, there's really little for me to get really complaining about. A lot of Meek Mill from the album bomb, you all expected that. Then Ring by Cardi B and Kalani, Fifi by 6ix9ine by Nicki Minaj and Murda Beats, and Stupid by 6ix9ine featuring Bobby Shmurda. None of that going away is bad news. And yet it continued to be a bad week for 6ix9ine as Kika with Tory Lanez fell down to 60, Mama with Kanye West and Nicki Minaj went down to 75, Waka with A Boogie with the Hoodie fell down to 78, and TikTok with Lil Baby slid down to 91. But as expected, the biggest loser this week was Meek Mill as the Championships album bomb slipped into freefall. Going Bad with Drake went down to 17, Dangerous with Jeremiah and PNB Rock went down to 49, What's Free with Rick Ross and Jay-Z slid down to 61, Uptown Vibes with Fabulous and Annual AA went to 79, On Me with Cardi B dropped down to 82, and 24/7 with LMA fell off at 86. Now the rest, well, the last few were either new entries that lost momentum, like Nuketown by Ski Mask and Slump God featuring Juice WRLD went to 98, Good Form by Nicki Minaj featuring Lil Wayne fell down to 94, and sadly, Nothing Breaks Like a Heart by Mark Ronson featuring Miley Cyrus fell to 80, or you get a song that just never really had consistent traction to begin with, like That's On Me by Yella Beezy hitting 92. But all this is to be expected in the aftermath of an album bomb, so what's replacing it? Honestly, it's tough to get excited about a lot of this, especially especially given how much of it feels like by-the-numbers trap and mainstream country. Yes, going to our roundout of returning entries, we also got Feliz Navidad by Jose Feliciano at 42, but on the country side, we got Girl Like You by Jason Aldean at 77, Beautiful Crazy by Luke Combs at 97, and Last Shot by Kip Moore at 87, probably the best of them. And then with trap, we got Dip by Tyga and Nicki Minaj at 99, and Yosemite by Travis Scott at 100. Why is that coming back? And as for our gains, well, it's intriguing because more than ever it feels indicative of acts that mostly survived the album bomb, picking up some big gains in the meantime. I've already mentioned Sunflower, but in particular Close to Me by Ellie Goulding, Diplo featuring Sway Lee picked up big to 59. Then You Say by Lauren Daigle rose to 58, and This Feeling by the Chainsmokers and Kelsey Ballerini picked up to 71. Hey, I didn't say the majority of these were good. Then we had the losers that rebounded big. As predicted, Bad by XXXTENTACION and Arms Around You by XXXTENTACION, Lil Pump, Sway Lee, and Maluma rose up the album bomb to 33 and 57 respectively. The latter one wasn't even on the album. Lost in Japan by Shawn Mendes and Zedd found some traction at 56. Be Alright by Dean Lewis picked up to 63. Backing It Up by Partisan Fontaine and Cardi B rose up to 66. That song's been all over the place. Consequences by Camila Cabello rose up to 72. You by Jacquees found some traction to 83, and No Stylist by French Montana featuring Drake rose up to 86. Then we had rebounds for country with Burning Man by Dierks Bentley featuring Brothers Osborne up to 73, 16 by Thomas Rhett up to 76, and Good Girl by Dustin Lynch at 81. Offset by Calling My Spear by Kodak Black picking up off the debut to 53 last week, but I can hope, right? And amidst all this, we also got a boost for Jingle Bell Rock by Bobby Helms. And hey, you can complain about that, right? It's a good song. And since album bomb rules are in effect, here are the XXXTENTACION songs that I'm not covering from the album this week. Staring at the Skies at 68, What Are You So Afraid Of at 65, Train Food at 64, I Don't Let Go at 51, and Guardian Angel at 48. But now we got to our remaining new arrivals, starting off with number 96, This Is It by Scotty McCreery.
If there ever was a time for a perfect kiss, this is it.
Ugh, I swear, somebody at a major label should hire me for consultation on choosing your next singles. Because when you have songs as great like Home on My Mind, or even Boys from Back Home, you go to this instead, I'm just gonna inevitably wind up disappointed. Well, alright, not that disappointed. Scotty McCreery is still one of the better male singers in mainstream country, and his production still has a lot of warmth and character thanks to using some live drums and giving his guitar tones plenty of room to breathe. And while I do think the song can feel a little bit schmaltzy, he took his girlfriend to the top of a mountain and proposed, and his upper register on that bridge feels a little bit thinner than I expected. It at least feels like a decent country song, so yeah, it's good enough. I'll take it. Number 95, Look Back at It by A Boogie with the Hoodie.
Only girl just wanna have fun with me. These girls ain't really no good for me.
So I'll freely admit that while A Boogie with the Hoodie has never quite won me over, he's just not really an interesting lyricist, he has been responsible for some of the catchier melodies and flair in this brand of trap over the past couple of years, and I haven't actively disliked him. So I'll admit I had some hopes that this would be interesting, even if in this case it comes from him interpolating melodies that were originally composed by Michael Jackson on Remember the Time and Rock My World. So no, Boogie, you're not getting any points there. But really, the darker atmosphere and the gleaming main synth playing off the piano, it's got some presence. I was really grooving with the vibe there, only to hit the realization for that as much as this girl is bad for him, despite being irresistible, Boogie barely provides any details surrounding it. Nothing he says on the song feels all that memorable or striking in terms of flexing or punchlines or even a really strong hook. It's just kind of formless. And that means I've got less than I want to really say about it. It's still okay because of the production, but barely more than that. Number 84, Difference Interlude by XXXTENTACION.
Girl, I'll be different. Baby, I could buy you enemies. Don't care about the distance.
Okay, here's the thing with the posthumous album. As much as I find the entire practice kinda detestable, there's a way to do it right. Mostly by trying to create the illusion that the artist is still alive or immortal in the art, to try and at least feel kinda timeless. Maybe about the worst thing you could do is produce an interlude that is basically unfinished, where amidst the sloppy acoustic guitar and half-formed lyrics, you can actively hear the engineers and producers assembling this mid-recording. It tips your hand, it shatters the illusion, and when you have an album that has a abbreviated as this is, and you're still trying to cram in an interlude, maybe it's evidence that this was all an atrocious idea, and you should stop. Number 62, 1 Minute by XXXTENTACION featuring Kanye West and Travis Barker.
The world only know you by your worst mistakes. So spaz on the ass, that's the only way. Smash on the gas down Stony A. Crash and come back with a swollen face. And when I'm on my way, X hold a gate.
So I'll say this, the song's probably the most coherently structured verse on the album, because Kanye's at least a decent rapper and seems to be trying to make a point behind the stuttering hard rock riff and Travis Barker's drum work. Now, considering said riff never goddamn changes or evolves, you would think the drums would be more varied in order to split up the track, add a progression, but nope, instead we get to hear Kanye West deep into his victim complex circa Yeezus, where he goes all the way on blaming the victim in XXXTentacion's case. And yes, I know his management has made damage control statements around it. I'll believe it just about as much as the rest of his faux trolling nonsense that he shoved on Yikes in the majority of his guest verses this year. But what might get more alarming is how he outright admits there is no logic in what he says. But what he has said and did made him who he is, all that pain and anguish, and it's enough to trump all the scholars. No, I saw what that was intended in the wordplay, fuck that nonsense. Then we have a sample of X screaming, who I might actually prefer to Kanye's anti-intellectual horseshit. So yeah, toxic, atrocious. Travis Barker could have done so much more with the instrumental. Maybe not the worst verse from Kanye this year, but among his most galling. Hell, I'd take the mediocre Screamo or even a abortive Interlude over this. Number 41, Sleigh Ride by the Ronettes.
It's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you.
And then we got another holiday standard hitting the Hot 100 for the first time, although it's been a staple in the Billboard holiday top 10s for a while, and it's probably not the version I'm most familiar with or one I like the most. If I was going to listen to this song, I'd probably grab versions by Johnny Mathis or Harry Connick Jr., or I'd take up one of the more complex versions with the track where the full rondo harmonies are preserved. With the Ronettes, it's good. I like Phil Spector's production, but it just feels a little bit overstated and lacking the swagger that I've always appreciated about the groovier versions of this song. This, I'm not gonna complain about it, but it's not really a favorite of mine either. Just saying. Number 40, Here Comes Santa Claus by Gene Autry.
So jump in bed and cover your head, cause Santa Claus comes tonight.
And just like the Gene Autry song I covered last week, this was actually a hit before, on the charts that predate the Hot 100 back in 1948, where it broke into the top 10 on the sales charts, top 5 on the country charts, and in comparison to last week, it's not one of my favorites. It's always so a little bit too jaunty with the strings and the weak horns and the accordion. Maybe it's just me, but I like my Christmas songs to have a little bit more groove and flair, and this one trying to inelegantly mash Santa Claus into a kind of Christian framework, it's a little goofy and badly placed, although very American of him to try. But as it is, I can't care about this too much. It's harmless. Let's move on. And finally, number 37, Whoa, Mind and Awe by XXXTentacion. And this is the highest charting song from X that hit this week, and like everything else from his half-formed exercise and horrible taste, there's barely much to say about it. I will say that what sounds like a rattling marimba line actually conveys a pretty solid melody, and the sharper kick drums and trap skitters come in, they balance out pretty well, probably decent production for X to work with, but shame they have to tack on X's undercooked crooning that adds nothing here. It's good production that keeps it in safe territory, but beyond that, Maya was already comparing things to like Whoa back in 2003, and that song wasn't trying to be meaningful or impassioned like this is. The production is the only legitimately good enough to put it into average territory, but it's not getting higher than that. And that was our week. Man, this is all I got to work with? Fine, This Is It by Scotty McCreery gets Best of the Week, and Look Back at It by a Boogie with the Hoodie gets Honourable Mention. I gotta say, the production's at least pretty good there. I can kinda dig it. Worst? Yeah, I would say XXXTentacion is getting both of these, but really, it's the producers, it's the guest stars, it's the record executives who deserve the score and so much more here. With Dishonourable Mention going to Difference Interlude, and the worst absolutely going to 1 Minute with Kanye West and Travis Barker. Yes, entirely because of Kanye's disgusting verse, and Travis Barker being a considerable disappointment. He even did better with X before. Next week, Well, nobody cares about those projects from Zayn or the Chainsmokers, and the streaming totals aren't looking so hot coming from Kodak Black's release, so maybe we might get a cool down? Who knows? Christmas is on a Tuesday, and that means that Billboard breakdown will likely get pushed back, so we'll see what happens. Until then, happy holidays for y'all, Merry Christmas for those who care. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.